The shocking truth is not that God saved her. The shocking truth is that God set the fire. He did not send a pillar of fire to guide Sarah Mitchell out of her despair. He sent a pillar of smoke and flame to test the last small hope clinging to her soul, and only then did her true resurrection begin. Sarah Mitchell, 42, carried the silence of a life brutally repossessed. For 6 agonizing months, she had been a ghost haunting the marble bench on Maple Street. The sudden death of her husband, followed by the monstrous medical debts, had claimed everything: the house, the car, the job, and the fair-weather friends who vanished with her solvency. Her entire existence was now contained in 2 threadbare duffel bags and 1 sacred relic, a worn, heavily underlined Bible. This book was not just paper. It was the final, fragile mooring of her sanity, a testament to the belief that had yet to be extinguished by the cold indifference of the city. While the world saw only a derelict, Sarah found a private sanctuary each morning. She didn't pray for a miracle of money or a cozy apartment. Her silent plea was always the same: Lord, help me keep a kind heart, even if the world has forgotten I exist. Let me not be defined by what I've lost, but by what I choose to give. There was a deep, quiet resolve in her sad, tired eyes, a conviction that faith is the ability to see light with your heart when all your eyes see is darkness. Across the park stood a 5-story brick apartment building. From its main door, like a burst of pure, unblemished light, often emerged 4-year-old Emma Rodriguez. Emma was a whirlwind of pink sneakers and untamed pigtails. Though her mother was perpetually rushed, Emma always paused. She would spin around and offer Sarah a wide, uncomplicated wave, her smile radiating an innocence that felt almost blinding. Sarah always returned it, her face softening into a genuine, fleeting smile. In that brief, pure interaction, Sarah felt a warmth, an unsolicited kindness that felt like a divine gift delivered by an innocent messenger. She often traced the gold leaf edge of her Bible, thinking, perhaps God shows me this little one so I remember goodness hasn't entirely fled the earth. She is my daily bread, a reminder that value exists outside of monetary worth. This small, silent ritual kept the bitterness from taking root. One late September afternoon, the air, usually crisp, grew thick, metallic, and acrid. Sarah's internal alarm bells rang before she even smelled the danger. She looked up, and a plume of dark, oily smoke began to snake from a 2nd-story window of Emma's building. Then came the sound, a sharp, hysterical scream that cut through the city's drone. "Fire! There's a fire!" A crowd began to gather, phones raised, murmuring in a state of collective self-preservation paralysis. But Sarah's eyes were locked on a single window. She saw her, Emma, her tiny face pressed against the glass, tears streaming down her soot-smudged cheeks, clutching her worn stuffed rabbit. The sight didn't register as a public tragedy to Sarah. It registered as a direct, personal calling. Her heart seized, not with fear, but with an overwhelming clarity. The street's cacophony faded, and in the silence of her soul she heard a voice, not an audible sound, but a profound, undeniable conviction. "Go, Sarah, I am with you. Do not let your heart fail where your feet can still run." There was no hesitation left. Her faith, dormant and weary for months, surged like adrenaline. She dropped her bags, leaving behind her only possessions, and sprinted toward the burning structure. She burst through the lobby doors, ignoring the distant shouts telling her to stop. The stairwell was a vertical chimney of black, choking smoke. It was hot, blinding, and suffocating. She immediately dropped to her hands and knees. The heat was ferocious, biting at her exposed skin. Her lungs screamed, but a desperate guttural prayer fueled her forward motion. Lord, give me strength to find her. Don't let me fall until I've saved her. If this is my final act, let it be an act of love. She crawled, navigating not by sight, but by memory and pure, desperate instinct. The air pressure seemed to shift violently, the smoke swirling into painful temporary voids. She found the apartment door. It was searing hot. With a desperate heave, she kicked it open. Inside, the world was a fiery red and suffocating black. She squinted through the smoke, and there, curled up next to a scorched sofa, was Emma, shaking uncontrollably. "Emma!" Sarah rasped, scrambling towards her. She scooped the child up, pulling the small body close. "God is with you, sweetheart. Close your eyes now. We're going home." The front door of the apartment was now impassable. A raging wall of flames had erupted from the next room. Dead end. Sarah felt a moment of raw terror, a paralyzing despair that this was where her story and Emma's would end. But then she remembered the small maintenance exit sign she had once noticed, the back staircase. As she sprinted down the smoky hallway toward the rear exit, a lick of fire caught the sleeve of her tattered jacket. It blazed immediately. She slapped it violently, the synthetic material melting into her skin, but the pain was distant. "It's just around this corner, Lord," she prayed, her voice hoarse. In that moment of absolute surrender, she felt an inexplicable rush of cool air, a momentary parting in the smoke and flame, just long enough to see the service door. A gust of wind, cool and clean, seemed to rush against the draft, pushing the hottest, thickest smoke away from the exit. She didn't question the miracle. She kicked the door open, plunged down the metal steps, and when they hit the damp grass, the wail of emergency sirens finally arrived, a distant human chorus to the miracle they had just lived through. When Sarah woke hours later in the hospital, the media had already labeled her the heroic homeless woman. A reporter tried to interview her, calling her a saint. She merely shook her head, her voice thin from smoke inhalation. "I didn't do anything," she whispered. "I just heard his call. When you act in love, you realize courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." She had no insurance, no money, and no desire for fleeting fame. She discharged herself quietly, the same way she had lived, unnoticed. She returned to her marble bench, pulled her singed Bible from the bag she left behind, and turned to a familiar passage. "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy." Matthew 5:7. She didn't know it, but God was preparing the second act of the miracle. 3 days later, a gleaming black sedan pulled silently to a stop. David Rodriguez, Emma's grandfather, a man of quiet power and immense wealth, stepped out. He had spent 72 hours tracking her down. His eyes, usually sharp and businesslike, were wet with gratitude. He approached Sarah, who looked up with quiet resignation. He sat beside her. "When everyone else stood by and watched, you were the only one who walked into that fire," David choked out. "My daughter told me. Emma calls you the angel God sent." Sarah looked away, tears finally falling. "I am nothing. I was just a woman on a park bench." David gently laid his hand over hers. "No, you are proof that God still walks among us, Sarah. You didn't just save my granddaughter, you saved our faith in humanity. That book, he gestured to the Bible, it's the only thing you held on to. It's what told you to go in, wasn't it? Sarah nodded. It reminded me of the true currency we hold, our ability to act when fear tells us to flee. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man laid down his life for his friends. John 15-13. I didn't lay down my life, but I was ready to. David wiped his eyes. That kind of faith changes everything. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a partnership. I need people with your moral compass. The apartment in the building next door is yours. The job as my property manager assistant is yours. You earned it. Let us answer kindness with kindness. 6 months later, Sarah lived in a cozy, sunlit apartment overlooking the park. She had a respectable job, a purpose, and most importantly, a loving surrogate family in Emma and her mother. Each night, she knelt with Emma by the bedside for their prayers. "Auntie Sarah," Emma asked one night, her voice small, "were you scared when you came to get me?" Sarah smiled, smoothing the child's hair. "Yes, sweetie, I was terrifyingly scared. But when you truly believe that God is with you, you are never truly alone." She had finally understood the profound lesson the fire had taught her. God doesn't always remove the mountains. Sometimes He gives us the strength to climb them. Sarah Mitchell did not find God in a grand cathedral or among spectacular miracles. She found Him in the smoke and fire, in the moment her feet chose action over paralysis, when she heard His voice saying, "Go, Sarah, I am with you." By choosing kindness and courage, the homeless woman became an angel, proving that the light of faith is not a passive hope, but an active, burning love.